So I know that was a lot to read, but we're starting on page 70. Is that correct?
Correct.
Really? I thought we were starting on 66.
I have 66. Is it 70 or 66?
66 in my book.
Oh, 22. Okay, all right. I'm skipping us ahead.
She's in a hurry.
Skipping us
Did you all read
ahead.
that? You got that? Move on.
There are a lot of excerpts from House of Justice letters. And I call that section the nature of the process of learning. Kind of overarching. Lots of good things.
Did anyone mark particular sentences that meant a lot to them?
I did. It's in the first quotation by Baha'i. And it calls for a profound change.
Could you say what page?
Page 66.
Oh, okay. Baha'u'llah's revelation is best.
Calls for a profound change. What perked me up was that it wasn't a tweaking of our present situation. It was a total profound change in how the affairs of mankind are structured. And on page 67.
Wait, where's the first one that you underlined?
Page 66.
Like second
Baha'u'llah's revelation is vast.
Okay.
It calls for a profound change, not only at the level of the individual, but also in the structure of society.
Okay.
And then in the same paragraph, followed on page 67, Baha'i endeavor to create the nucleus of a glorious civilization enshrined in his teachings. The mission of Baha'u'llah, based upon this, is the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth. And for what is needed is a total, profound change in society in order to achieve that.
What I marked here was, again, in that first paragraph from the House of Justice 2010 Resvan message, I marked that transformation, what the emphasis is that this profound change is a transformation of the individual and society, the same kind of theme that we've been talking about throughout. And one thing that stood out to me in that paragraph is that there are no shortcuts or formulas.
Right.
Beckers likes to call me Susie Shortcut.
Oh, I'm going to remember that. And where does it say there are no shortcuts?
At the end of that paragraph, toward the end, on 67. There are no shortcuts, no formulas. It's not a formulaic thing. And I think that kind of speaks to the fact that every cluster around the world is going to proceed and develop in a unique way. You know, there's learning that we can gain by studying what other clusters are doing and have done and are planning to do, but our particular reality is going to be our own reality. And so we have to learn to read that and know what our community is. No formulas.
That paragraph, that's right.
Yeah, and then in the next paragraph, the task of the Friends is to identify what is required for progress to occur, and then find creative ways in which the necessary time and resources can be made available to achieve it.
The one I picked up on was right after that,
Mhm.
to the bottom of the paragraph, and I was thinking for the individual or for the community or for the institutions, I thought about what if more business managers could take this concept and understand how to deal with people.
Were we just
We just
talking
talked
about
about
that
that
with
at
the
dinner.
United Airlines
Right.
thing?
Yes.
Well, the part I'm talking about starts, I don't know, maybe a dozen lines up at the bottom of that paragraph. The very fact
Mhm.
that each set of circumstances presents its own challenges in enabling every community not simply to benefit from what is being learned in the rest of the Baha'i world, but also to add to that body of knowledge. Awareness of this reality frees one from the fruitless search for a rigid formula for action while still allowing insights gleaned in diverse settings to inform the process of growth as it takes particular shape in one's own surroundings. Anyway, the thought was that every situation, no matter where we are as individuals or communities or institutions or business managers, everything's going to be different, and you've got to be able to, if your mind and heart are set right to honor the other people and to do the best, then you're going to come to a good decision. And anyway, that one struck me there. That thing.
What stood out for me was the first paragraph on 67. Only as effort is made to draw on insights from his revelation. And then I skipped a few, but mostly for economy's sake. Will the necessary learning occur and capacity be developed? That we have to keep turning back to the writings. We have to look at the knowledge that we have. We have to apply that. We have to take action. So to me, that was really significant, to continue to look at the necessary learning has to occur and capacity be developed.
I also really liked on page 68, in the middle of that second quotation from the December 28th, 2010 letter, sort of in the middle there, scaling back one activity that is flourishing on the basis of theoretical conceptions of how balanced growth can be achieved often proves counterproductive. Talking about the flexibility that we should show in growing our communities.
I saw that too, and when I saw scaling back on that one activity, seems to indicate the importance of commitment and continuance. You start a program, seeing it through, and continuing.
And that goes into what they say at the end of that paragraph is that, yes, we learn to read our own reality, but how do we do that? Through action, reflection, and then consultation. And that whole cycle of action, reflecting on what happened with that action, then consulting on that, and then acting. And so that whole cycle of action, reflection, and consultation is so paramount to everything that we're trying to do in the community as individuals.
Whatever just Susie says, that's the definition of a building capacity. I was always wondering what the hell was this building capacity is about. It's what it is, what you just said. It's the learning, figuring out what to do, and acting through action, reflection, and consultation. That is the capacity building. That it's in these conceptual things that have been introduced by the Universal House Justice in this book. So it's a process.
In the whole institute process,
process,
that is what's talked about, is building capacity of the human resources, building capacity. And yeah, it's true, that's what it is.
That's what's it right there, you know, and this comes to mind that if you are immersed in the writings, that you are able to solve problems. This is capacity of figuring out what is the issue, and we know the answer. From Baha'i revelation, the answer is anything you do to bring people together and unite people, unite the situation, diffuse the conflict, that is the right way. That is the action you take. So this is where our capacity building allows us to apply what we know about the revelation.
And also to follow up on this, my take on the March 1st Universal House of Justice Center, we've got the capacity. Now go out and solve problems.
Right.
Go out and do it.
And again, on that page 68, the House of Justice has said, I think in the December 12th, that at the heart of this whole institute process, this process we're involved in here, is capacity building. Capacity building is at the heart of it. And so everything that we're doing in this institute process is to build capacity. So, and the ability to act, reflect, consult, act, reflect, consult. There
And
you
also,
go.
capacity building is the ability to say, yes, I can do it.
In
because-
your understanding.
We understand, because many people go through everything, at the end it says, no, I can't. I can't do it. It's not. But the capacity is, yes, I can do it because I have the knowledge of what we are. The end result is when you know the end result will bring unity, improve the condition, whatever you're doing to make it better. So that's the end result. We already know what we want to do. So the answer is yes.
Yes.
We can do it.
All right. Any other comments about the quotation? How about the other parts that you read on 68 and 69 and 70?
I think also on page 68, and it's the second paragraph from the bottom, the ending sentence, activities that we know are to contribute to a transformation of the whole character of humankind. So again, this idea of personal transformation, societal transformation, that's the second reference in this section. And again, it leads me to believe that it cannot be tweaked. We can't take the present situation and tweak it and somehow make it applied to the teachings of Allah.
There was one that caught my eye having to do with success and failure, and how maybe we can, through antidotes, we can jump to conclusions to believe we've reached a conclusion that brings us to a success, and maybe it runs the other way. And it said that we've got to resist the inclination to reach quick conclusions from what we consider successes or failures. For example, in one neighborhood we may have spoken to two youth, neither of whom has shown interest in entering into a conversation on the themes we've proposed. How easy it would be to conclude that themes of social and spiritual import are not of interest to the youth of today, or that youth in this neighborhood are not receptive. Then they ask us to discuss in your group other examples of unwarranted conclusions that can be reached on the basis of one or two antidotes, particularly when we have narrow conceptions of success and failure. And I think back in different experiences where maybe we, as a group, not this group, but other groups I've worked with, Baha'i and non-Baha'i, where we kind of jumped to a conclusion before we really had looked at all the possible facts that were involved. And had to step back then and reconsider.
Yeah, it used to be the only success was if there was someone who declared, it's like, just, I was thinking about that today. This each one teach one does not mean each one get someone to sign on the dotted line of a Baha'i. It needs to keep teaching. Yeah.
What impressed me, it was like telling us to slow down. Speed wasn't the most important thing. Goal, of course, is goals, plural. You have to go through that normal process of action, reflection, and consultation. But also, it also states, the glorious civilization envisioned by Baha'u'llah will demand centuries of exertion.
Yeah.
That really impressed me. Yeah,
And a big aspect of that one too.
we have to keep persevering even though some of the fruit may not even occur in our lifetime.
So the question becomes, teach them what?
Consultation, how to consult, even if they adopt the Baha'i consultative method in their business, help people get along better, businesses thrive, and ultimately better the world for both the owners and the employees and the customers, etc. Bringing it down to the cold, cruel realities of our materialistic world.
I think we've got to be careful with how we define success. Success may not be in all cases for someone to sign on the line to become a Baha'i. We could be, a success could be someone they've changed their minds because they've heard about the Baha'i revelation and have changed their lives. And for them, it's part of their spiritual path. Eventually, then they may become a Baha'i. But someone has been out there and maybe planted some seeds of the Baha'i faith. And those are successes, I think. And if they become a Baha'i, that's a really neat success. And then they continue on and grow in faith. But you have to realize that some of that is going to be slow. And it's not a fast 100-yard dash. It might be a marathon.
But quick question. This loop of action, reflection, consultation is a loop that not necessarily has a beginning and the end, right? Because I was thinking that one optimal sequence could be reflection, consultation, and action. It looks that the individuals, if we first have a reflection after a consultation, is the second stage, do the things extremely powerful. Because go first for reflection, consultation, the third step is totally secure that it will be extremely powerful and will be with the truth. Because this sequence, reflection, consultation, the action will be always the best, in my opinion.
It's true. So then you act, but then
Same thing, reflection.
Exactly.
then
This
it's again because you want. Maybe things had to be changed. It didn't go exactly the way. Maybe it went exactly the way, but the outcome.
It's pretty much what in business is called a quality circle. Your continuous monitoring, looking at data to reflect on what your actions have done, and then what you can do new. So it's the Baha'i model, but they don't know yet.
In manufacturing, they say continuous improvement. But in the spiritual context, it should be evolution. Because it's like the evolution of the consciousness. It's going through an infinite place because it's the same always, right? But the consciousness of the soul, or what we could, is going in evolution, right?
I've always thought that reflection is a continuum if you have an open mind. If you have an open mind to ideas and other concepts, the reflection is taking place. Then there comes a time for consultation where you can kind of pull together and get other people's thoughts too, and then maybe even have some more reflection.
This is exactly how I see it, because consultation is an extended vision of the reflection. Because the reflection is just with the individual, but the extended reflection, that is the consultation, is with the community or with the group. But in essence, it's the same, just that this is in a network.
It's
Isn't it?
really quite a beautiful process,
Oh,
the consultation, because sometimes, really, we are limited. We're finite beings, right? Maybe I didn't think about this way, you know? I can think of many times that has happened. Oh, I didn't think of it this way. And it's so good that you brought that up. And maybe that's a different approach, that'll work much better. I mean, it's so illuminating, really. It's so amazing.
It's interesting because part of it could be semantics.
Mhm.
What's the difference between reflection and consultation? You know, is reflection something that I do when I meditate and I'm by myself, or do I reflect when I'm with someone else? What am I reflecting on? And consultation is that time when we start planning, but they kind of weave together.
Yes.
So that's where the semantics comes in. What do we mean by this? So you can be doing both at the same time, or you can divide it up. Like when we have a reflection meeting after a class, when I'm at Lou Helen, we sit in a circle and we each talk about what we did in our class that day, what went well, what were the challenges. And then we consult. What are you going to do differently tomorrow? What suggestions do you need, that kind of thing. So we kind of separate them. And yet in that meeting, someone might say something and it sparks an idea, and someone else says something, and then you're consulting in the middle of the reflection. It's very interesting how we can look at that differently. Yeah.
And what are the expected outcomes?
Positive.
What's that?
Positive. You know, everybody with consultation, everybody, you know, having your reflections, and you get into where you're doing action would just be a positive outcome. Or am I missing something?
The outcome could be any solving a problem or performing a service. It depends what the topic is you're dealing with. And I remember the word of Leon used to say our thoughts and minds are like parachute. It needs to open before it could work.
Again, going on that first quotation, the work advancing at every corner of the globe today represents the latest stage of an ongoing Baha'i endeavors to create the nucleus of the glorious civilization enshrined in his teachings. So I'm looking at not teaching religion, but teaching the processes of compassion, which are religious in orientation, to use those embodiments to build a new civilization. The adoption of religion is something else.
For civilization to be new, you need to have what we are doing. We are introducing values that share. The more of the values are shared around the world, the more we have that universal civilization. I think it's a slow process, but I think it's working.
That's kind of what I'm looking at, is teaching them what? Teaching them the virtues. How do you get back away from self-interest and put your behavior more in community interest? How can you be generous? How do you have an economy based on generosity as a Baha'i, knowing that everybody else have an economy based upon self-interest? How little can I do in order to benefit versus how much can I do in order to add value?
Right, exactly. It's what we're doing is we are in these different ways trying to share the revelation of Baha'u'llah, what Baha'u'llah has said that the world needs right now. And we can take it a little beyond just the virtues. We need to have this understanding of the oneness of humanity, that the world needs to work together, lay down arms, understand consultation, all of these things that are the essence of Baha'u'llah's revelation. So that's what we're about, right? Is sharing Baha'u'llah's revelation. And what is that revelation? And so the more we understand what that revelation is, the more we can share. And people, and recognize where there are elements and groups and societies who are already working for those. those part of the revelation of Baha'u'llah, right?
Yes.
Promote the
Passionate community.
Right. promote the
Yes.
compassionate community, the virtues, promote the equality of women and men, promote the harmony of science and religion. These basic truths and elements of Baha'u'llah's revelation. That's the source. We know the source, that people don't have to accept the source. They just...
Right, I was going to say the revelation is just a new teaching. The faith is a new teaching. I mean, the
A new
virtues-
chapter.
A new chapter.
Mhm.
And you have all these church with different religions, and I'm thinking, okay, you have these different religions. They have their way of teaching and of the virtues and equality of mankind. But then when you sit there and wouldn't you say an outside, someone who is not of the Baha'i faith would look at us as a religion as well,
Of course.
when we say in the faith.
I'm finding a lot of non-Baha'is out there who don't even realize that their lives have been changed with some of the Baha'i revelation that's been put forward. Let's take the equality of men and women. Look what has happened since 1844.
Right.
Look what's happened concerning the equality of women, particularly in the last 30 to 40 years within the United States. We're not there yet, but all of a sudden, look who's coming forward now. Women, some Baha'is, some non-Baha'is, but I attended that, not in our town, there in Bowling Green, which was against all kinds of biasness that could be brought into a community. That was a couple weeks ago. And last year they had 120 people, big success. That was their 4th year. This year there were 350 people there. They wanted to get involved in making changes. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right on, okay, this is what the Baha'is want too. And my feeling is the closer, the more growth that happens like that, the better chance Baha'is have of saying, you're a Baha'i and you don't know it. Let me change a few ideas and concepts and kind of bring you up to date here. But that was a great thing that happened. I was glad to see it happen. They got the university, they got the police, the mayor of the city, they had high school students. Yeah,
Wow.
just a nice group in that.
I like the idea that in religion, it's the same mission statement, but we got new goals.
New goals.
New goals.
Susie, do you have a title for the next section?
Oh, I do.
23.
Interdependence of the core activities.
23?
That's section 23.
Did anyone have anything from that section they wanted to mention?
Just a comment before I forget. I was thinking that one of the very the power behind the consultation is that in the spectrum of the possibilities, what the consultation move the solution to the center. Don't never move the solution to one of the extremes. Then the individuals probably have sometimes solutions out of the center, and the consultation will move is the solution to one point that is maintain the equilibrium.
Is it possible that the solution could be at one end or the other?
If the equilibrium is missed, probably it's not the best.
Maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying. I'm just thinking sometimes one person can have an opinion and 8 people can disagree with it, and that one
Yes,
person actually knew the truth.
Yeah, I was thinking what John mentioned about what is the outcome. The outcome is always if consultation is present, the output of the consultation is something that doesn't impact anyone around in the solution. It will be something under equilibrium.
Well, I like to think of what the outcome of consultation is, especially if it's consultation that, that truth will be found. Truth of what is the best action to take, truth of who are the best people to contact, truth of the existence of X or Y in a community or whatever is truth, right?
It's a,
Relative truth at that moment.
That's right,
Yes.
is truth.
it's
And,
true.
and it should always be that we should keep in mind that it should be unity is maintained always. That's more important than even finding the truth.
Truth, relative truth to the point that you are not destroy your unity. And so if you reach the point that you have to choose a truth on disunite the group, you choose the unity. Okay, forget about the truth. Because truth is for that moment it's elusive, losing you, it's going away.
Illusory.
Yeah, illusory truth. Because we know the reality, the closer to the higher truth is the unity of the people in a form of consensus and cooperation and reciprocity, than sticking to an absolute truth that you think you're stuck with it.
Finding truth of Baha'i faith is easy for me because I believe that's the truth. Finding truth in all other situations, I'm never quite sure I've got all the facts that demonstrate to bring me to a conclusion that that's the truth. Whether you're investigating some kind of a case that you've been assigned to, or you've got a decision at home with your kids, okay? Finding the truth of what actually happened and not just opinion.
Although
Yes, go ahead.
it's generally understood in the Baha'i faith that mankind will forever go through challenges, and it's solving those challenges that causes his growth. And I think that Abdu'l-Baha mentions that the source of all conflict is the not embodying the virtues. So if what causes conflict between two people, I would understand the conflict from one point of view, in my interpretation. Maybe the victim would understand it from his point of view. But if we take the conflict and elevate it to a spiritual principle as given to us by the manifestations of God, now it's no longer my opinion. It's up to a higher standard. And perhaps in consultation, I can look at my perception of what that says and what it means, and another person can do the same thing. And with that, with consultation, arrive at the solution. And the solution would be some sort of correction based upon behavior.
Good.
If everyone had an open mind in that situation, I could see that happening, John. But sometimes people are so stubborn and want to hold on to their concept of what their view is the truth. It's difficult.
It's not an easy world, but
Yeah.
Maybe the only thing you can get out of that is to agree to disagree.
and you can't save everybody.
But I always loved those talks with Tom Price in Nashville High School in 2012. And he talked about Abdu'l-Baha's 6 steps to teaching, and it applies in so many ways. And the first step is listening. So in a situation where there's a conflict of interest, when you listen first, and I was just giving an example to my granddaughter today. Years ago, we were living in a neighborhood, and our next door neighbor was very angry and took it out on everyone. The police were called several times, that kind of thing, right? And one day, I set out some stakes in my yard and tied a piece of yarn along the stakes. So my little boy, who was 2.5 years old, could play in his own yard without getting in trouble for daring to step a foot into the neighbor's yard. She got so mad at me, she came outside and she ripped that thing out. She threw that at me and yelled at me and called me names. And again, the police were being called. And I just stood there. And I let her yell, and I let her scream, and I let her holler and call me names and do all those things. And when she got all done, I said, I am so sorry you're upset. My hope is that we can be the kind of neighbors that when you're standing in the yard, I can wave and say, hi, how are you? And just be friendly and get along with each other. And if there's some way we can do that, that's what I long for. And she went in the house peacefully. And several months later, I gave birth to my twins, and she sent a gift. Because when we build bridges instead of building those walls, then we get peaceful resolution. Because I've listened instead of yelling back.
Good.
And I think that's so typical of what we do. We tend to think I'm right. And of course I was right, right?
Not in her mind.
Doesn't matter who's right, right?
That's where the truth is become relative.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. What matters is people feel listened to. People feel like you care about their perspective.
And this is perhaps where the attribute of forgiveness comes in, because forgiveness offers a reset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't throw the yarn back, you waited.
Yeah.
I have to think about, there's an old song, I say it's old, it's in the 1940s. Johnny Mercer wrote a song called Accentuate the Positive and Eliminate the Negative and Don't Mess with Mr. In Between.
He's from Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah, he is, or was. But that was always a good one. We used to sing that in some of the classes over at the university, some of the business classes. You know, you gotta think about that. There's more to the song. I won't bore you with it. But accentuate the positive things and eliminate the negative things and don't mess with Mr. In Between. Straight on to the positive.
Jonathan? How should we proceed?
I think, look at the quote on page 78.
78.
Yeah. I think we should, skip ahead a bit. Is there anything in there that you wanted to talk about?
Section 25.
Just before section 25.
The quote starts on 78 and finishes on 79, and it's very interesting that you've taken us to this, because one of my notes is we should start this section with this quote.
On top of page 79, the very first sentence, they must at all times remember that when the guardian makes his appeals to the friends, he is only presenting the situation to them. Each one must evaluate what his own response can be and should be. No one else can do that for him. In section 23, going back to page 71, it indicates what group is being addressed by the Ruhi books. And primarily it's 14, 15-year-olds. And also the purpose of book 3 is the training of teachers.
Right.
So extrapolating Shoghi Effendi's sentence here and trying to apply the Ruhi books, how does that look to us, especially me at 68, who is not a 13 or 14-year-old? You can raise issues, but how does it apply to you? That's entirely your individual charge. And how do you make it work?
So it just seems to me that most of the Rui books are aimed at, all of the Rui books are aimed at adults.
Or what?
Are aimed at adults.
All the Ruhi books are aimed at adults?
Books
Yes.
1 through 10 are aimed at adults. Not everyone might be drawn to teaching children classes or doing junior youth classes, but but they're all useful in some way, I think.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Trying to find its use and apply it to an age group. But the narrative, looking at what I see, it's for that 12 to 15-year-old group.
Well, that particular narrative, they were talking about their experience working with children's classes and junior youth activities, as you read through. But those who have had the chance to take most of the educational sequence in the study circle, because if you remember right back at the beginning, it said that this was at the beginning of the section that Peggy just gave us the title for. She said,
23 was there or 24?
yeah, it was 23. The interdependence of the three educational imperatives. Another way of talking about the educational imperatives are the core activities, but they're a little bit more. The core activities are also devotionals and things like that. But the three educational imperatives that the Institute process talks about are what? What are the three educational imperatives that the Institute
The
process?
individual, community, and
Well, those are the three protagonists.
the protagonists.
Those are but when the House of Justice and this particular, people who've written it, what are they talking about with the three educational imperatives? What?
Children.
Children's classes, having children, educating the children is one educational imperative. What's another?
Junior,
Educating the junior and youth is another educational imperative.
and circles book.
And the
And
other
adults.
imperative is the youth and adults, the adults. Educating through the Ruhi sequence of courses, which are books 1 through what we know of 10 right now, right? And these are the educational imperatives that we're focused on. And so right now, here we are, a group of adults. Isaac could be here too, but he's not. And together studying and kind of engaging in the process of one of these educational imperatives. And the reason why, for instance, book 3 is considered something for adults is because we talk about what is the importance of educating children. Why should we educate children? What part of book 3 are actual lessons that can be used for people who feel called on a path of service to work with children. And so part of book 3 are examples of lessons that can be done. All of book 5, which is the empowering the junior youth population, is totally for adults. It's a very heavy content book. It's totally for people. And then the idea is you want to study that. Why should we empower these junior youth, right? So the whole educational process, there are 3 imperatives. What does imperative mean? People know what imperative means?
Yeah, please define it.
Oh, please. Someone else can define it. I'm not know-all.
If it's also applicable for children and adults, shouldn't the adults be trained on how to be empowered as well?
Yes,
But that's what
Therefore,
the whole
taking the material and then
courses.
extrapolating that.
right. That's what the study circle is all about.
I came across a community member that said that when they voiced concern that they don't have any children in their community, how could they do the Ruhi classes? The answer was, go out and find some.
Mhm.
Go out and find some.
So
What about the
that
adults?
that wouldn't have been, how can you do the RUI classes? That would have been, how can you start a core activity?
How can you start a children's class?
And you can see that
People just don't understand.
it does have an adult context. In other words, in Sylvania, if we don't have any children, do we go out and find children before we do anything else, or is there something that we can do as empowered spiritual believers to make our community better and to set the stage for the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth?
Sure.
Well, we just had a section on flexibility of how to implement the plan, right? And that we should build on the strengths of our community. So it's not we're not being given cut and dry directives on what to do. We're being, given tools, and we should apply those tools as we can in our
Yes.
community.
Okay, and imperative means?
Imperative, necessary or urgent. That's the first definition. Second is expressing a command or plea. And third is of, relating to, or constituting the mood that expresses a command or request.
John, if you don't have children, specifically, then you take the one broader definition of children, is that all are children of God. So
There you
grab
go.
anyone.
There you go.
So grab anyone.
There you go.
And unless you live in a senior citizens housing where no children are allowed, there's always children. There's children everywhere.
If we just concentrate this on junior youth and children's classes, what would that say for the communities that have mature believers? How could they progress? How could they then start to apply the teachings of Baha'u'llah and the expectations of being a Baha'i to the greater community in order to be the transforming agent?
I think that's by,
Let's go back to where we started in section 22, I believe it was, where we talked about not giving up one thing, scaling back one activity that is flourishing on the basis of theoretical conception of how balanced growth can be achieved often proves counterproductive. So if we have a flourishing children's class, for example, we don't scale back on that in order to make something else happen. We add to it, and we figure out what are our resources and how can we add to it. And I have long understood that our resources are much bigger than we realize. They're the whole community, the wider community, not just the Baha'i community. And how do we engage people, and how do we have those meaningful conversations and bring people in? And we're all capable of it. Some of us are more competent than others, but we can all grow and learn. And that's how we do it. And we are offering for adults. Susie and Jennifer and I were just talking about how to start a book one, because there are adults in the wider community that would be interested. So let's start bringing them in. Let's add to what we're already doing. We don't currently have junior youth in Lucas County, but there are junior youth in Wood County, and Jennifer's found some junior youth in Lucas County who are not Baha'is. So we just keep adding. And I always look at this small Baha'i community, and I am blown away by how much we accomplish with such a small number of people, working, every one of us, working in different ways and making it happen. And we just keep adding to what we're doing.
Agreed.
I think if nobody has anything else about that quote of the on the behalf of the Guardian, the next section 25 we should go on to. I've put a kind of title as moral responsibility, but maybe somebody has another
I
title.
put ongoing conversations.
Okay. Everybody else who read, maybe you have something to add.
I put on here opportunities lead to networks, networks lead to relationships, and relationships lead to power.
Opportunities lead to, that's good. Say it again, John.
Opportunities lead to networks, networks lead to relationships, relationships give power. Increase power, how's that? Relationships increase power.
What page is that?
I put that as a note on page 80, second paragraph from the top. Again, I'm extrapolating.
Friendships lead to
Opportunities lead to networks. And again, these are my understandings.
And networks lead to relationships. See if I got it right. See if I got it right. And relationships lead to increased power.
Increased power. And of course, increased power, your ability to do more things, to accomplish more things.
So I would say it leads to action. Anybody have any other things? This is all like a narrative, a conversation between people who are reflecting. And at the same time, they are consulting.
And also on page number 82, number 5, in the story above, my comment was this links directly to the March 1st, 2017 Universal House of Justice letter, as well as the February 27th National Spiritual Assembly letter. In the above story, Andres is clearly aware of the importance of mobilizing the resources of the community at large.
Which goes to what Peggy was just saying, too. Number 5 at the bottom of page 82. Anything in this section people want to bring up? Anything else? Jennifer, is there anything you want to emphasize?
No, I was just reflecting on how important it is practically that when you're working with the book with the junior youth, that to really remember what's the topics in book 5 and always make that connection for yourself and also for in planning on how to put together what you're going to talk about with the.
Can you give an example of one of the topics in book 5?
Yeah, so book 5 really focuses on helping this pre-adolescent group of folks think about what they want to do with their lives and really envision themselves in roles that will change the world, both in their communities and the careers they choose and things like that, and just and the books written for them don't necessarily talk about that all the time, but they are talking about important themes and in addition, you're supposed to work in practical ways they can get out into the community and make changes. So they're learning how to change the world
By doing.
And then to just help them make that connection. This is, and how are you going to carry this forward in your life, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you have any example to share with your Westside group?
Well, it's actually pretty challenging to do that, I think, because we went out and cleared up a path behind the school that the children use a lot. So we were being of service to the school by doing that. And it was a nice walk in the woods, and they enjoyed it. And just to remind them that this is service and the meaning of service. It's not automatic, so just remembering to do that.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have anything from this section?
I was just sitting here thinking, we were talking about cleanup, and it's funny because today I was driving, and I'm looking at the streets and the curves and the garbage and everything, and then in this, our speaking today, we were talking about, there's people that don't know Baha'i, and we want to, introduce. And I was sitting there thinking, boy, I wonder if, we're in a place of mass people, and we had something like a safety vest with Baha'i on it or something, people would say, "What Baha'i?" And, curious minds, and you could probably be interacting and talking with people on the road, trying to get it out there a little bit while you're still trying to do something good as a service. Because personally, when I look at some of these streets, it's just depressing. You don't see it so much here in Sylvania or Waterville or these little towns, but when you get into Toledo, I know it's a whole different thing, but for me, it's just depressing to see. you know, and if we can get some people from within the Toledo community to go out and do something, they can feel good about themselves and, you know, and talk with other people and, you know, a good thing happens.
Historically, Baha'is, we had projects that we cleaned, went to local authorities, you know, whether it was a county or city, that they give you a few blocks or a few miles of the road to clean once in a while, you know, maybe every 6 months or so. And I don't know if there is one in Toledo that you could, let's say, get that agreement, so we line up the friends and they train them how to use safety, and there would be a sign on the road saying this section of a road is cleaned by Baha'is.
So this isn't something where you would basically get some people together and just hop right
You cannot
into it.
go like that on your own. You have to check it with municipalities.
It has to be an organized group.
I know
Organized
that
group,
what we
yeah.
did in Wood County
Yeah, we did, yeah.
for a while.
Yeah, we what was it, Highway 20?
Right, but I think
25.
what Sean is saying is a different idea. What we did in the past was we adopted a part of a highway. And
Adopt a
what you're
road.
talking
Oh,
about is
yeah.
adopting a neighborhood. And that's a different thing.
It's
And
different.
if everyone's wearing a vest that says, or a
Well,
t-shirt
actually,
or
you'd be
whatever.
adopting a city street, you know, and if you're out there and you're cleaning all the time, and
Yeah.
some of these people might take a little initiative not to throw the garbage in the street a bit more. They see you out there trying to keep it clean, you know, maybe they'll have a guilty thought and the streets will slowly become more clean and the people will be more up to, you know, try and have a cleaner neighborhood. You know,
And-
with
and-
clean
and that-
neighborhoods brings in
And
good
that
things.
leads to building friendships. As you're working in one neighborhood and you're building
Right.
friendships and you're trying to beautify the neighborhood, it builds trust.
Mhm.
It builds those relationships that turn into power.
Mhm.
And so I think that's great to think through, how do we do this in a small way that then becomes bigger?
I just want to mention something that's kind of been weighing on me. We're recruiting people to UT, and we take them out to dinner, and they always ask, you know, what's Toledo like? Is it safe? And it leads inevitably to the conversation, oh yeah, we have some wonderful suburbs. Sylvania, Ottawa Hills, you know, mommy, you know? And yeah, there are a few places downtown where you don't want to go, and everyone knows you don't go there. And I'm thinking, you know, there are people who live there. How sad is it that people are telling each other never to go there, right?
I just had an experience today. I took
Yeah.
a friend, she wanted to go get Chinese food in a seedy part of town. And so I'm sitting in the car and she says, lock the doors while she goes in to get her order.
She lives in that.
She lives there. And I'm uncomfortable sitting there for 5 minutes and I'm thinking to myself, she lives here. She has to deal with this every day. She has to think to herself, lock the door, where do I hide my money? How do we make this world a place where you really can feel safe? And I think ideas like Sean's are a key to it.
Yeah, you know, you can go down there, you know, and coming from the north end, from a younger age and everything, I kind of know the life there. I think it's gotten worse, or it became a lot worse than when I was in the north end. You know, now I go down there as the white boy, the black boy down there pointing his finger like, you're in the wrong spot, you need to turn around and get out. And you look at the news every morning, and seeing people on their porch, it's probably never been outside of the north end. They don't have the means, and I think John's mentioned a few times, where can these people get their education? How can we help these people so they don't realize that their feet are just stuck there? You know, and just think that, you know, the highlight of their life is going out and sitting on the front porch enjoying the sunshine, when there's a whole lot more out there, you know.
Is this recruiting people to med school?
No, like a chair of a department.
Oh, okay.
Well, you know, if you find one person in your area who agrees with you that we need to clean up, I think that would be the beginning of it. We can initiate that. And
There are some there now in Toledo. You see them on the news where there'll be someone that'll step forward and say they've had it, and they get the neighbors together and they start to clean up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks, whatever it is, but that's what you need, something at the grassroots level.
Yeah, or partnering with the church or
Or
something.
partnering with the
Yeah.
church, or I don't know whether the city could get involved in any of that or not.
If people who own buildings, property owners, you know, maybe they're too busy or something, you know, and
Absentee owners, yeah.
Or
yeah,
maybe,
well,
maybe
you see them there,
yeah.
they're there every day and they see all the garbage and debris there and they do nothing about it and, you know, and that kind of hurts.
And you also get discouraged, you know, if you clean up garbage and debris and you go out the next day and there's garbage and debris again and you do that for several days, you get discouraged.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's like
John,
why?
you have something you want to share?
This is from February 25, National Spiritual Assembly. They end with, "Dear friends, let us follow his shining example with a sense of urgency and with determined focus. Let us consecrate ourselves to the creation of a world in which knowledge will be the province of all, where there are no limitations imposed upon a soul by virtue of race, gender, or creed, where the material and spiritual aspects of life are in harmony, where all the truths essential for human progress are held sacred. To do so will require great sacrifice, courage, and audacity."
Okay, so that's what we need to do. That's what we're called upon to do.
You're audacious, Sean.
So perhaps maybe we can do more than clean up the litter. Maybe we can actually go into existing agencies and work within their structure.
Anything else for section 25? Because we want to move on to 26, which is quite a long section, but there's lots of blank spaces there. So anything jump out? There's several excerpts from messages about the generation of youth on pages 84 and 85 that particularly about youth, but maybe some people made notes and have some things that they want to share. Or something jumped out that you'd like to discuss?
The beginning of the last paragraph on 84.
On 84, okay.
The enthusiastic participation of youth also highlighted the fact that they represent the most responsive element of every receptive population to which the Friends have sought to reach out. I think that was one of the things that I found on Facebook quite a few times about the churches. They kind of overlook the youth. They don't feel like they're giving anything or they're even being asked to give anything. So this is a change to ask our youth to participate in this and that they actually want to reach out.
This is true. Anybody else have something that jumped out?
Page 86, top says, "Yes, it certainly does know our true potential," and I assume that they're speaking to the subject matter, which is what, the 12 and 15-year-olds?
It was the House of Justice letter of December 29th, 2015, and I think that Monica's saying, yes, it certainly does know our, that the House of Justice, this is amazing, there's so much about young people like us. The House of Justice knows us so well, and so Monica's saying, yes, it knows our true potential. So, as the youth, right? True potential.
So what would be the true potential of us adults?
True potential is the same, actually, because the theme is there, that taking us back, the betterment of society is resting on these two things that we talked about at the very beginning of this unit, the doing, arising to serve and accompanying each other, and the being, and actually increasing our understanding and mirroring those spiritual qualities in our lives, right? The being, the doing and the being, which we started talking about at the beginning of this whole exploration here.
I was thinking that with the adult, you would have a vast difference in learning experience because of age.
I'm looking at page 87, the bolded paragraph from Universal House of Justice. And this struck me. There are currently 2 points along the sequence in which, sorry about my glasses again, not my eyes are great, in which an individual may choose to follow a specialized path of service.
That's
And what that
specialized.
says to me is there's two specialized, but there's many other paths. And I think we all need to look at that. What is the major path? Adults, of course, what's the major population? Those other two are very important and they're specialized. And there are those of us that feel very comfortable working with those age groups, and there are others that, when we know the importance of those age groups, when we study Book 5, it's not necessarily a commitment to be an animator, but to understand how important this work is and to support it and to be willing to consult and reflect and help take action in whatever way we can. And I think it's really significant to realize that they are specialized, but that's not all we do. That's two specialized things within what we do.
Okay. Any other comments on this section? Jennifer, did you have something that you wanted to bring out? I mean, there are several places where we can write down things that we know, experience based on what we, but if people didn't have anything that jumped out, we can move on. Identify the attributes that are relevant to the work in, for instance, okay. A teacher of children's classes, an animator of a junior youth group, and those are what the first couple of pages are. And what we were saying is this whole sequence of courses, books 1 through 10. What are we learning as adults, and what attributes are we learning that are applicable to, let's say, teaching a children's class? Not just book 3, but in the other things that we're talking about and learning and studying. The nature, in book 1, let's just take example, the nature of prayer, understanding Scripture. What is prayer? What is Scripture? And what is life and after death? Life and death. So those are the 3 basic sections of just one book, right? Can we see any application to working with junior youth, studying those things, working with children? Anything? Certainly. All those aspects work with it. So those are just in those specialized little paths of service, right? So all our study can help us, I'm thinking.
And all paths.
And in all our paths. In all paths, exactly. Okay. If there's nothing else, let's move on. 27. Page 90. I just put one word at the top of the section, joyful. Joyful.
Right.
I put down reflection. This is the reflection part.
I put down lessons learned.
Oh, well, which is the reflection. there's a lot of writing there. I don't know how other people do, but I kind of make notes in the margins when I'm reading. And if anybody else has things that they've jotted down, please share. Or things you remember. Pardon me?
I didn't get this far, I was fishing.
Oh,
I think
you were fishing? Okay.
Yeah, we were going over the book at night before bedtime, and I says, "Hey, the fish are biting. We gotta go." You know, I so I went down the river. She sat on the bank doing book 10. And I'm out there. And I'm like, "Oh man, I better catch something."
But she did take a picture of you because I saw you.
So we have the proof.
So what I'm thinking is you've been reading the Bible and you're a fisher of men. There we go.
Fishing and praying at the same time.
Well, one note I made on section 27 was this was an exploration of how they processed the reflection,
Right.
the means in which to accomplish that.
I put notes that movement of populations towards a vision of faith for humanity, right? They're reflecting about moving whole populations towards that reflection, that vision of faith for all of humanity. And then they were also reflecting on questions like how to improve the quality of our efforts, things like that. They were also reflecting how having joy and enthusiasm is all really an important part of the whole process. And prayerful and respectful attitudes in their endeavors. Recognizing that it was one collective endeavor, one collective effort. And how the need to work together in teams is very important because we all are limited in what we can do, and that we're interdependent of each other, and that's the way we were designed, right? And that's okay. And it's all right to ask for help. Some people are good at
So glad to know that.
at delegating, right?
That'd be super.
It's all about finding a balance. I can't read my own writing sometimes. That becomes a problem. Making our efforts systematic, methodical but not rigid, decisive but not controlling, careful and not controlling, decisive and not, I can't read that word, what I said. What's the opposite of decisive?
Indecisive.
Indecisive, but not hasty. It's hasty. Be decisive, but not hasty.
you decipher your
Yeah,
right.
be decisive, but not hasty, and not too fast. Okay, I deciphered my own handwriting. Be creative in our efforts, but not haphazard. Have unity of thought in consistent action.
All those things you mentioned, Susan, reminds me that there should have been a book for parents, including all those things.
I think there are many. They do this kind of dichotomy in this whole page 93, I think, because I've written down, ponder the meaning, but don't dwell on the words, right? And ponder the meaning, but don't dwell on the word. Analyze situations and so on, but don't reduce them to some, as they've said before.
Micro dissection.
Identify areas of of action, but don't compartmentalize.
Tell me what that means. Say that again.
Identify areas of action, but don't
Compart,
that's, yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
saying it right.
Compartmentalize.
Action. To me, that means that it has to be unified and people have to work together towards a goal, but not say this one.
Separate.
Not make them separate. To me, that's what that means. My understanding. What do you write down, Jennifer?
I think the overall theme here is seek the golden mean, right? So
Yeah.
Was what?
the golden mean, right? So don't be extreme, but do go out there and give it your best.
And on page 94, they kind of say we should be calmly determined and have a readiness to listen, right? So that goes back to what Peggy was saying. Appreciate diversity. In the first paragraph, appreciate diversity, be calmly determined, have a calm determination, and have a readiness to listen to people. They're talking about going on home visits and different things like that.
This whole section really to me spoke of get out there, do what you can, listen, reflect, and that sort of thing. But that it, even to everybody, it's a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
And teachers, I keep hearing this, teachers learn more than their students, and in ways that is true. So then you can try a new thing for the next time.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? That we read together the last section, because it's really a wrap-up of the book.
I just wanted to comment on something Deb started. I've made a commitment recently to try to say, not try, I'm doing it as a commitment, to tell it of Ahmad every day. And towards the end of that prayer, it says, if you say that prayer with absolute sincerity, God will, and I don't have it memorized, so I can't quote it.
Solve your problem, relieve your
Solve your
affliction.
problems, yeah, relieve all your afflictions and all this stuff. And I read that part of the prayer and go, absolute sincerity. I can't do it. My mind wanders. Doesn't matter that my heart wants to do it sincerely. I can never be that good. And the very next sentence resolves that because he is so merciful. It's okay if I don't do it perfectly. And I think the same is true with this, that it's okay because it's only as effort is made. It's not when you're perfect. It's when you make the effort. And I think we always have to remember that. So keep making efforts.
Absolutely. If we need to be perfect, we'd never do anything.
Yeah.
At least I would never do anything because I know my efforts are always fall short from perfection.
We are told by Abdul Baha that this world is the workshop, it's not the gallery. It's
Art gallery.
It's not art gallery, so.
Okay. Jennifer.
Deb, could you start reading?
Are you talking about the last paragraph?
28.
Section
28.
28, okay. We begin this unit by examining the nature of the path on which we develop our capacity to serve the cause and humanity, and the implications of walking it. Then we turn our attention to two closely connected concepts, accompanying one another and learning together. Concepts that we attempted to explore in detail in light of passages from the writings, particularly the recent guidance from the Universal House of Justice. The story of Monica and Rodrigo brought to our explorations insights from the experience of an ever-growing number of friends around the world who are walking the path of service and enabled us to reflect on certain attributes that distinguish their interactions. The study of the unit has also given us an opportunity to spend some time discussing the responsibilities of institute coordinators serving at a level of cluster and to familiarize ourselves with the intricacies of the all-important work they carry out. Now we know that Monica, whose capacity we watch grow over the course of the story, will be asked to serve as a cluster coordinator for the junior youth program. But coordinators do not simply appear. Monica was assisted step by step in broadening the sphere of action in which she moved as she demonstrated the eagerness and a keen sense of responsibility towards the work before her at any given moment. The path of service described in this unit is wide. It invites everyone who so wishes to enter it. Once on the path, we each advance according to their own circumstances, our own circumstances and abilities. The simple actions of service that mark the path at the beginning are followed by others that gradually become more demanding. This offers us an opportunity to systematically enhance our capacity for service. No one walks the path alone. Each one of us is helped by others to carry out specific tasks, to gain assurance, and to serve more effectively. Encouragement is a sustaining power to be drawn upon at every step. When obstacles confront us and despondency sets in, we bring hope to one another, reminding ourselves that the bounties of God always surrounded us. When doubts arise and confidence is shaken, we press on together, putting our complete trust in God and His unfailing grace.
Maybe we should pause, and if people have any comments.
I think we should have read this at the beginning, and then we could go back to the beginning and have that overview of this is what we're going to get. This is awesome.
Any other?
On the second paragraph, the bounties of God, I put a note here, the Concourse on High, and its instrument to aid us.
Mm-hmm.
I on that very much that by the fact that we are accompanying one another, we are learning as we go along.
In the first paragraph at the end, the sentence is, but coordinators do not simply appear.
Yeah.
And so she has advanced in her capacity, gained in her capacity, this Monica we've been following along, to actually then take on a role that coordinates activities for a whole area, right? This particular educational path process for the whole area, right? But it's been a process, right, of her being assisted and accompanied along the way as well to grow, right? So that term encouragement just jumps out, right? Any other comments on the first two paragraphs? Which way are we moving? Christy?
That we accompany one another down the long stretches of this path as we learn to traverse its terrain is, of course, imaginary, invoked to help us describe the individual and collective process of capacity building in which we are all engaged. The dynamics of our interactions as we pursue this capacity building process has been, whether explicitly or not, the subject of intense exploration in section after section of this unit. Among the spiritual requisites that such a dynamics demands are two that deserve our final reflection here. Humility and the generosity of spirit that bespeaks a magnanimous heart. The friends we meet in our story, Roxana, Paola, and her mother, Mrs. Ramirez, Rodrigo and his friends Alicia and Carlos, Monica, Luciano and Leticia, Andres, Clara and Anidia, Alfaro and Lua, were all imbued with these two qualities. How else could they have been able to achieve so much during such a relatively short time? It was humility that helped them detach themselves from their own accomplishments. It was their generosity of spirit that engendered the joy they felt at witnessing the achievements of others. So too did this same spirit enable those with experience and some knowledge of the path to avoid the inflexibility and rigidity that results from the urge to control every detail when they were called upon to accompany others in the field of service. To overlook the shortcomings of their coworkers and strive to make good every mistake, these came easily to our friends. How else, we should ask ourselves, when we know that humility and magnanimity are so indispensable to harmonious interactions, could they have been able, as the Master so longed, to become as one, to follow one in the same pathway, and to hold fast to a single resolve? And how, in the absence of these two qualities, could they have been able to contribute to an environment in which their individual powers were multiplied in unified, unremitting action? Day by day, Abdul Baha urges us in the tablets of the divine plan, may you add to your effort, exertion, and magnanimity. Let us end our study of this unit by memorizing the following passage from one of those tablets. Praise be to God, that the divine outpourings are infinite. The melody of the lordly principles is in the utmost efficacy. The most great orb shining with perfect splendor, the cohorts of the Supreme Concourse are attacking with invincible power. The tongues are sharper than the swords. The hearts are more brilliant than the light of electricity. The magnanimity of the friends precedes all the magnanimities of the former and subsequent generations. The souls are divinely attracted, and the fire of the love of God is enkindled.
Over and over again, we have paragraphs like this, telling us how much help we are supposed to get from the concourse on high. And yet, how often do we think, okay, it should be here, but I don't feel like I should trust it. How is it going to help me? When is it going to help me? And then when you do something, even just a little bit, there it is. You know, it sometimes smacks you in the face 2 or 3 days later. Oh yeah, it was there. But we don't always, I think, trust that it's there when we need it. I know I have that problem. I should trust more.
I love the idea that we're being accompanied by those who are on the other side, just as we can accompany each other.
When you're reading the life of Martha Ruth, wherever she was, and she was continuously having a conversation, and that conversation was with the concourse on high, asking help, and the help will arrive very quickly, because on the other side of the world, Roy Wilhelm was getting a better contract and a coffee at the Wall Street, and was sending the money and the little book for her.
Little bins.
Little bins. So the conversation with the concourse on high, and particularly Abdul Baha too. I mean, when you converse with all of them, wherever you focus your mind. And But it's true. We need to have a continuous conversation, just like the fiddle on the roof. You keep talking to God all the time, and He's hearing you all the time. You can ask questions, yell, and be quiet, humble, mad, whatever.
I'm very moved.
Okay.
My dear friend Rhonda Palmer, we went on pilgrimage together, said, the best advice you can get, the best medical and spiritual advice you can ever get is to take 2 tablets a day. The tablet of Ahmad and the fire tablet. I'll start with the tablet of Ahmad. I'm a little scared to take both.
Take
I don't
2
know,
tablets a day.
The fire tablet, though, really answers a lot of questions.
Yeah, but just think of all the divine confirmations that are going to come and then how much work I'm going to have. That's a little scary. I might overdose.
Right.
No, you're right. It's so intense that I'm scared to do it every day. You know.
Yeah.
because-
Maybe you should read the other tablet you can read. It's tablet of visitation of the Baha'i.
You know,
And that-
that's an
yeah,
excellent
yes,
idea.
yeah.
Maybe that'll be my next one, before I get brave enough to do the fire tablet. That's excellent. Thank you, Bruce.
The cause of religion has always been one of incentive, and the incentive is you have to do something first before something is received. In Christianity, knock and the door will be open, seek and ye shall find. It involves some action and then the response.
And Baha'u'llah says, love me that I may love. If thou lovest me not, my love can in no wise reach.
So if we're waiting for the feelings of confirmation before we do anything, you're putting the cart before the horse.
Any final thoughts?
I just have one. I love the fact that he's joined the phrase, you know, the tongue is sharper than the sword, which is reminiscent of things that people have said for centuries, right? With the hearts are more brilliant than the light of electricity.
Actually, in this
Well,
passage,
actually, Abdu'l-Baha could only have said that.
Yeah.
Christ could not have said it.
Sure.
The hearts are brighter than electricity.
Well, did it like
If the cause of God is to usher in the kingdom of God on earth, and if it's up to human power in which to do that, in which case, you know, the Baha'is and our friends, at what other time in human history could we have done that? This particular passage is all about this present dispensation. It did not appear in previous. It had the potential, but it was not fulfilled. So, you know, Jesus talked about the kingdom of God is at hand, and it was for the disciples. But where is that kingdom of God on earth as a result of his prophecy? It was for a future point. That future point is today.
Speaking of, I recently got a hold of an audiobook, Thief in the Night. And although I've read that book a couple of times, but listening to it on tape is really wonderful. I just wish that the recording was handled because William Sears himself reading the book, but William Sears wrote The Thief in the Night.
Who did the recording?
I don't know,
Okay.
someone, a woman's voice is reading it, but it's so fascinating because this is the time when Christ made the promises to return, and we are living in those times. So
you like that audio? Is it like you get more from the audio?
well, it's good you can listen to things like that when you're driving,
Right.
the fact is that there's realization that all the people generations before, particularly Christians, Jews, and even Muslims, that they were all reading their scripture thinking that their Lord will come, that the expectation, promises, it's all the prophetic things. And the prophecy is the fact that when I grow up, when you are a child, you prophesy, grow up, I'm going to do wonderful things. And the same thing in the scriptures is that we're growing up, we're going to have wonderful things, peace on earth, tranquility, all these problems. And those expectations, we are living at that time that they were praying for. And these things happen. And the William series is precisely going and breaking down and analytically the biblical prophecies from the Old Testament, New Testament, and bringing down to show precisely how these prophecies were fulfilled, just like the clockwork, exactly as it was sent in that year. And it's such a convergence of 1844 with major religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. The prophecies converge right on the May 22nd, 1844.
He's explaining that, right? That was right in the, sorry.
Yeah,
In the
In God
beginning of
Passes
the-
By.
And God that passes
Yeah.
by. But the point is, this book is a very
God loves
inspired.
laughter.
This book is very. I read it in early 60s, and there was a time when we were Jehovah's Witnesses were even going door to door in Britain. I was in Britain at that time, and I had to with this knowledge of William Sears, I was able to talk to them. And at least they didn't bother me anymore. They didn't come back.
They couldn't understand your accent, probably. That's when you just left Iran.
I just gave a copy of Thief in the Night to someone yesterday, and it's a brand new copy, and she said, "You don't have to do that. You don't have to buy a book for me." And I said, "What do you want me to do, steal it?" I'm not the thief in the night.
Yeah, I got one from my uncle and my two children. I don't know if my son would get much out of it. I don't know if my daughter read it.
Well, get them God Loves Laughter.
Yeah, we're.
That's the first book.
And I
Because that
enjoy
is
that.
so fun to read.
Yeah.
And then they get pulled in, and then they'll want to read Thief in the Night.
Mhm.
Also, the uniqueness of the age is up until this revelation, it's always been the interpretation of the manifestation of God. The different writings of Christianity were done in terms of mere mortals' understanding of what Christ was mentioning. In our dispensation, you've got a very unique and decisive passing of the covenant to Abdu'l-Baha and interpreting the script. So now it no longer involves, well, I think he meant this. It's already,
It's very clear. I love Abdu'l-Baha's writing because he says, well, this is how it should be, and by this I mean this is how it should be.
so schisms can't happen.
I made that point to a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses today, and of course they're required when they stop by that they've got to send the message, even though I explained that I'm a Baha'i. And one woman said, "You're the only Baha'i I've ever met." I said, "Oh, well, let me tell you." So mini fireside happened on the street, and I guess for about 15 minutes, and they both left smiling and good luck. You're brave to get out here and do this, which they are, to go from door to door, because you never know what you're going to meet. Might be a fist, it might be a handshake when you knock on that door. But it was a nice experience. But I wanted to make sure that I said that yes, and Baha'u'llah has left us over 100 books for us to guide our lives. She pondered that, I think.
Just the fact that it's really a conversation piece, because had Christ written one paragraph, one sentence on a piece of whatever parchment, what do you think the Christians would do with that? I mean, would be a most precious piece of information they have, right? But do they have that? That's a really question, because they have the word of Christ through another person's mouth. So the fact is, what if Christ come and write these things down in his own handwriting? What would you do? You say, oh, that's wonderful, right? So here it is. I have it right in front of me.
What are the stories that I hear that there are scriptures written, but yet as man we wouldn't understand them and they're hidden? Is this a myth or?
Who, in the Christian, and whose faith?
Well, I guess it would be from the Roman Catholic Church.
I don't know that. I really never heard of that.
Historically, understand that within the history of Christianity, between the crucifixion of Jesus and Constantine, there were three major persecutions of the church. The final one happened during Diocletian, which would have been about 15, 20 years before Constantine. And it was almost complete to the point where somewhere around 98% of Christian literature in the Roman Empire was destroyed. The reason being is that because Diocletian passed a law, anybody that had Christian literature, automatic death sentence.
What years are we talking about here?
This would have been 295 to 305
Okay.
in that area. If you were found with Christian literature, it was automatic death sentence. But if you gave it up to be burned, then you were pardoned. So in the Roman Empire, it was assumed that somewhere around 98, 99% of Christian literature was destroyed. So consequently, what we have left are fragments upon fragments in the West. Now, in terms of Christianity as it went out toward India and Afghanistan and China, nobody knows. There might be some relics, but how would it be recognized?
And he did say, I have more to tell you, but you can't bear it now. So that's in the Bible. Personality relatives.
Which page?
I can't remember where I got that from. I don't know. It could have been a movie for all I know. But it come across me a few times, and I'm sitting there thinking, what is it that man cannot bear that's written in words?
I think it means understand. You can't
Right,
understand
understand.
it now. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, because why didn't Jesus prohibit slavery? Some other specific teaching that we accept now, he did not mention it. About that. Apparently, we were not able to make that change in our society to prohibit slavery at that time.
People couldn't have processed it.
Or maybe it got burned up.
And also,
Or maybe it got burned up, like you said.
well, I think it would have been in one of the books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
I didn't know that either, that, they were pardoned or, they had to burn.
Which really presented a huge dilemma in the church, because when Constantine was appointed, when he won the battle and he was appointed emperor, now all of the Christians that gave up their faith rejoined. And now the question is, well, do we accept them free gratis, or do they have to go through the process? Confession of sins, things like that.
Yeah. But anyway, Christianity achieved its goal from my understanding, is achieve its goal and gave this civilization the foundation of Western civilization, Christian Judaism, and that's what we are today. Of course, there's a kind of a people leaving the church a little bit, but that's not the issue. The fact that they produced tremendous literature, tremendous art, tremendous music. All these things are the result of Christian civilization.